This month of August, I want to talk about health. If you want to make sure you see my upcoming videos related to health, make sure you subscribe. Bless you. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss them. Healthy, as described by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is having good health, not sick or injured. So today I'm talking about food and what I've learned about eating in order to have good health and avoid and prevent sickness and injury. So what I want to share with you today has helped my boyfriend and I improve our energy levels over the past 7 years, as well as has changed our bodies. Here's a picture of us from 2010, and here's what we look like today. Well, you can see me, but we do attribute this mostly to our food choices. We're not the most fit people that I know, but we feel good. I feel like we're both at a healthy weight, and we definitely feel like we have enough energy to do what we want to do, and we've certainly changed for the better. So figuring out what food is actually healthy can be really frustrating, and sometimes makes me just want to eat donuts all day. So the information that we're bombarded with on a day-to-day basis can be very conflicting. I'm making this video today to commiserate and share with you what I have learned about what healthy food means, what I like to eat, and the sources I trust to give me true, factual, and well-intentioned information on what is healthy, not healthy, and why. First of all, why does anybody care about what's healthy? So I don't know why you care, or if you care, but I can tell you why I care. I want to feel my best, look my best, perform whatever I'm doing at my best, and live in a way that's sustainable and nourishing to keep myself around on this earth as long as possible, because despite its infinite imperfections, I kind of like being here, and I would like to make some positive changes on the earth before I die. Secondly, there's so much information out there about what is healthy and what is not healthy. How do we know who we can trust? According to a study done by a Penn State professor with a PhD, only a quarter of medical schools even offer one course focused on nutrition. The abstract of this study states, many healthcare providers are not adequately trained to address lifestyle recommendations that include nutrition and physical activity behaviors in a manner that could mitigate disease development or progression. Based on my experiences, what healthcare providers are trained to do is prescribe medicine, and that medicine is often in the shape of a pill. I'm not saying doctors are bad people. I think that doctors get into the field because they want to help people. However, I think it's easy to become part of this pre-existing system when entering the medical field. Dr. Greger writes in his book, How Not to Die, that as a medical student, he was offered countless steak dinners and fancy perks by Big Pharma representatives, but never got a call from Big Broccoli. He also writes that huge budgets drive the promotion of the latest drugs, which you hear about on TV, but you'll never see a commercial for sweet potatoes because there's little profit motive connected to the power of foods to affect your health and longevity. So here is how I decide what information to consider as factual and what information to disregard. So when I look at a piece of information regarding what is supposedly healthy or not healthy and try to understand whether or not it is factual, I like to consider whether or not it could possibly make any sense, whether or not it's based on research, whether or not that research was funded by a party that would benefit from the results of that study, and whether or not the party presenting the research findings might even know how to read a research study and interpret the findings correctly. Another thing that I consider is when a singular person is giving advice on health. I like to consider whether or not the person actually lives the way he or she is advocating, whether or not the person radiates health, is energetic, focused, and just overall walking the walk of health. And when I do find sources that I trust, I like to try to figure out where the information presented by all of those sources overlaps. So I like to find the commonalities, and as I see it, the more agreement that exists around a certain concept by sources that I trust, the more likely it is that that is going to be a factual piece of information. So over the years, I found two sources that I really truly trust. The first source that I trust is the Blue Zones book by Dan Buettner, which was sponsored by National Geographic. Looks like this. Lessons for Living Longer from the People Who Lived the Longest. It was also a New York Times bestseller. So the Blue Zones looks at the pockets of the world in which there is an abnormally high rate of people living past 100 years old. The pockets being called the Blue Zones. And it considers all aspects of life, including food, but also lifestyle. And the second source that I really truly trust and find to be accurate and well researched is How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. Michael Greger is a medical doctor who got his degree from Tufts University, I believe. And Dr. Greger also runs a website called nutritionfacts.org, which is a nonprofit, science-based public service providing free daily videos and articles on the latest in nutrition research. And I also highly trust that website. So this book is divided into two parts. The first part is divided into chapters, and each chapter focuses on how not to die from a specific disease or ailment, like heart disease, breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, suicidal depression, etc. Each chapter is specifically focused on that ailment in regards to preventing and even reversing it with food and lifestyle, but mostly food. And part 2 of this book shares Dr. Greger's daily dozen foods that he recommends we eat every day for optimal health. What I love about this book is that almost every sentence is footnoted at the end, so they all refer to studies, which you can find in the unbelievably large notes section, and you can check out that study if you want to. If something doesn't sound right, or you're skeptical about a concept or a piece of advice that he gives, you can look at what study he drew those conclusions from. So what I took away from the Blue Zones about eating for longevity is to avoid meat and processed foods. And what Dr. Greger advocates in How Not to Die is also a plant-based diet free of animal products in conjunction with other lifestyle recommendations. So in terms of food, both of my trusted sources recommend avoiding animal products and eating a plant-based diet. Over the years, I've also picked up a few more peripheral resources that I trust mostly. These also conclude that a plant-centered diet is best for disease prevention and longevity, and these sources are the China Study by T. Colin Campbell, PhD, the Starch Solution by Dr. McDougall and his wife Mary, and the 80-10-10 Diet by Dr. Doug Graham. So these resources have a lot in common and a lot of overlapping information, as well as overlapping information with the Blue Zones and How Not to Die. Again, I like to see where my trustworthy sources overlap and go from there. All of these sources agree that a plant-based diet is the way to go for optimal health, disease prevention, and longevity. However, they don't all necessarily overlap in terms of what types of plants to eat and in what quantities. Dr. Greger and the Blue Zones recommend eating all types of whole plant foods each day. The starch solution recommends getting most of your calories from starches like rice, beans, and potatoes. The 80-10-10 diet recommends getting the majority of your calories from fruit. I don't really dwell on those specific differences too much. I tend to side with the Blue Zones and Dr. Greger's work, eating a wide range of plant foods, starches, fruits. There are, however, some differences that have given me more frustration. So the issue of whether dietary fat is good or bad is something else that my sources don't all agree on. So there seems to be a consensus that animal fats and animal products in general are foods to avoid if you're looking for health and longevity. However, some of the sources say that eating whole plant foods high in fat, like avocado and nuts and seeds, the Blue Zones highlights an island in Greece that does include olive oil as a part of the diet, while Dr. Greger and the other sources I mentioned say that any plant oil is not healthy because most of its nutrition is stripped and removed, and that the oil is basically empty calories. Dr. Greger says even extra virgin olive oil may impair your arteries' ability to relax and dilate normally. Dr. Greger seems to think that the Mediterranean diet is so full of fruits and veggies and legumes that it is beneficial despite the olive oil rather than because of it. Dr. Greger and the Blue Zones are big advocates of eating nuts. Some of my sources like the starch solution and the 80-10-10 diet say to keep whole plant-based fats like avocados and nuts low to 10% or less of your calories. I follow people on YouTube who are eating low-fat and oil-free who seem to be thriving. I follow people who are eating lots of avocados and nuts and seeds and nut butters who seem to be thriving. I also follow people who include plant oils like olive oil and coconut oil who seem to be doing just fine. So it's kind of frustrating because all of them fit my description and idea of healthy people. But the one thing that they do all have in common is that they are plant-based eaters and avoid all animal products except for maybe some honey. So maybe eating a plant-based diet is enough to keep us feeling healthy and looking healthy despite what kind of plant fats we include and how much of them we eat. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. To conclude this whole video on what healthy food means, how I decide who I can trust, and what I've learned so far, number 1, food is healthy when it gives you energy, not when it makes you lethargic or induces any kind of pain. Number 2, I trust sources who use unbiased research to draw a conclusion. Number 3, everyone should do his or her own research as well as take a good look at who is giving you the information you consume, like me. And number 4, I've learned from the research that I've done and my 9 years eating plant-based that eating this way allows me to feel really good, it allows me to have the energy I need to get stuff done, and it's definitely changed my body for the better. So I'd love to hear from you about any resources you might trust to give you honest, factual information about health. I'm always looking for new resources. And in my video next week, I'll be sharing with you my favorite healthy food YouTubers. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to see those, which you have to see. And if you want to see some more health-related videos this month. If you want to see what I eat, you can follow me on Instagram. You can find my Instagram below in the description box. And I post pictures of my food quite frequently. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.